All right, welcome back, everybody, to another live streaming episode of Alternative Money Monday. Great to see everybody after a holiday weekend. We had a couple weeks off. Things have been busy, but glad to be back and great to see everybody. Hope everybody is doing great. Today, we are joined by Eric from Pangolin, the decentralized exchange that is supporting HBAR. Of course, I'm JR, the co-founder of Ledgerama, makers of Wallawallet. As per usual, I'm joined by our community manager, Tim Mongai. Hey, Tim. Good to see you. Hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah, certainly. And we are so excited to have Eric from Pangolin. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Super excited to catch up.
All right. So for the folks out in YouTube land, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, leave us a comment. We love the comments coming in. That's the best way for us to get a feel for whether people liked or, if you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. But, make sure you leave us a comment and let us know what you thought about the show. All right, so we will go ahead and jump right into, and of course, at the end, folks, stick around because my favorite part of the show, we give away some jam tokens every week. So hopefully folks will stick around for that, and we'll pick our jam token winner from our Twitter family. But without further ado, we'll jump right into it. So Eric, could you tell me, of course, just the kind of, standard stuff, a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into cryptocurrency, and more importantly, how you got into Hedera Hashgraph. We talk a lot about Hedera and HBAR centric stuff on this channel. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of rundown about your history.
Yeah, so for me, based in the US, before coming to Pangolin and being more involved in crypto, I was like a digital marketer and for direct-to-consumer e-commerce businesses. Specifically, like if anybody's in the United States, there's a brand called Chubby's that was pretty big, and like from 2010 to 20, actually still pretty big, but I worked for them for a while, became a pretty decent digital marketer. And in 2020, I found crypto basically looking for something that was a hedge against inflation in the US. It's a huge problem. It's gotten worse.
No doubt.
I know, and I wasn't going to buy a house. Housing prices seemed insane to me. They still kind of seem insane. But I kind of just like happened upon, I'd bought a little crypto in 2018 during the big bull run there, or 2017, and didn't think much of it. And then came back in 2020 and really started looking into it, getting into Ethereum, which was super fun. And over, the past now 3 years, have slowly dipped my toe in more and more to like Ethereum, NFTs, other layer one networks or networks doing other things. Then that eventually led me to leave my job kind of in the Web2 space and just look for a job in Web3. And I came across Pangolin actually on Twitter. The former CMO was looking for somebody with digital marketing experience. And I joined, and that would have been February 2021. So I've been with Pangolin, or 2022. I've been with Pangolin over a year now, a year and a few months. It's been amazing. When I joined Pangolin, we were only on Avalanche with plans to go multi-chain. And in that year since then, we've now deployed on 5 different chains, which is pretty amazing.
Wow. That's very ambitious.
And we have a product called Bridge Swap as well that connects 39 chains so it's not our own liquidity, but it aggregates bridges indexes so that you can swap between 39 different chains, which is pretty wild.
That is wild. Wow. Yeah, there's more stuff that I even knew about. So you guys have been incredibly busy. It must be a pretty decent sized team.
Yeah, I think we're around 14 full-time people. And then if you add in some part-time moderator staff or people we use for QA, probably closer to 20. But yeah, relatively big team for the space, which is nice.
For crypto startups, that's a pretty good sized team. And to be able to accomplish all that must be a pretty solid team as well.
Yeah, it's tough. It's one thing I've learned. I guess I didn't realize as much before working in the space how few teams there really are that work together for long periods of time in the space. There's just not a lot of, especially on the like smart contract engineer or just network engineers, people who can develop at that level. There's not a lot of teams or even talent out there. So it's been amazing to work with pretty much the same team for over a year.
Right. Yeah, it is challenging. I mean, of course, my business partner, our CTO, Rob, and myself, we've been working together really since 2018, but it was kind of on and off because, we were both working initially both working our normal jobs, and then we kind of, took the plunge, so to speak. I wound up getting laid off from my corporate job in late 2019. So it was kind of one of those things that I said, well, I didn't leave. They told me to go away. So I'm going to forge my own way. And, we've been kind of blazing trails here in the wild west of cryptocurrency ever since. But yeah, as far as the team though, Tim, of course, has been, Tim has been with us for quite a while now too. It was one of those, we met basically it started off as a support call for Wallawallet, and turned into a great friendship and a good business relationship as well. So that's been stable, but there's certainly been kind of a revolving door. So stability, in other positions. So stability of the team, pretty important, and looks like you guys are pretty cohesive, which is great.
In that regard.
So just kind of the brass tack kind of stuff. How does Pangolin integrate with Hedera Hashgraph? What's the primary way that people interface with Pangolin when they're dealing with Hedera? Is it a web application?
So I would say the majority of people are going to interact with it to swap. So we're a decentralized exchange, which means you can do permissionless peer-to-peer swaps. And if you're a user who, I think the first time I ever swapped on chain was Uniswap on Ethereum, but a lot of users will come in and expect it to be the exact same thing as a centralized exchange to function the same way. It's a little different. It's based on liquidity. Our original contracts are a fork of Uniswap v2, which is where liquidity providers create LP tokens by pairing two together. So if you were to do HBAR and PBAR, which is our governance token, create an LP token with those. And when there's liquidity in that, users can come and they can swap from HBAR to PBAR or PBAR to HBAR. They don't have to worry about one thing with the end of last year in FTX. We did a lot of education, especially in real life with people I talked to who thought I was, affected by FTX by a lot. If there's liquidity there, you can see it on chain, which is great, as opposed to a centralized exchange where you're just hoping that they have funds if they're not proving that they have them. Right. So the decentralized exchange, the main product we use is Swap. If you're interested in being a liquidity provider, you would use LP tokens and farms. We do our governance token PBAR. We have an emission schedule for 3 years, I believe. So if you create LP and you stake in certain farms, you can earn extra rewards on top in PBAR. And currently we do super farms, which we add a second or a third token on top. And currently, I think all of our farms on Hedera are super farms where you earn PBAR and HBAR if you provide liquidity to make sure that there's enough for swaps. We also have single-sided staking, which just means you can stake our PBAR token and earn emissions in PBAR. We have a very cool, one of our smart contract engineers, Sean, created something we call Sunshine and Rainbows, which
I was just going to ask about Sunshine and Rainbows. It was something that I kind of caught. It was something that I kind of heard on the breeze, something about Sunshine and Rainbows. And, I come from a long line of hippies. So anytime you start talking about Sunshine and Rainbows, I'm all ears. So tell us about that, because it sounded like a pretty cool way it sounded like a pretty cool thing for your users. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Sunshine and Rainbows was born out of what happened in 2021, 2022 with the way LP farms worked, at least for us. And I forget what the original algorithm was from, but you could claim rewards when you farm at any time. So a lot of people would claim rewards, sell their rewards immediately, and then filter it back in, creating kind of this cycle of just claiming rewards, selling rewards. So Sunshine and Rainbows is built to be kind of like a beautiful place if you are staking either LP tokens or just a single-sided token, where from the moment you start, you have 0 APR, and it gradually gets more as long as you don't sell or claim your rewards. So you can compound rewards, add them back in, which is great. But if you remove your stake, remove any amount, it just resets your APR or any rewards you have.
And how much is the percentage, the APR for the staking?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on also our legal department will it's something that, especially with some of the SEC regulations, like we don't like to kind of market that or talk about prices, but the way that it's calculated, I'll say the way it's calculated is based on the price of the asset as well, or whatever the price is decided on the DEX. So if that fluctuates, it can go up and down. And then depending on the farms we have, we call him our chief farm scientist, but he allocates rewards in certain percentages. So that can go up and down depending on where we think liquidity is needed the most. One thing we're really keen on is making sure that at least in LP, we have like the most important pairs that will need long-term to have the deepest liquidity. So a lot of times those will have a little bit more weight towards them to encourage more people to farm there. And then with single-sided staking, I believe it's a regular amount of emissions of PBAR every week. I don't know exactly what that number would be, and it would fluctuate depending on the ratio of like what one PBAR to one HBAR is.
So just out of curiosity, so of course the regulatory stuff has been, it's pretty much always taught. It's always kind of right there at the surface. Sometimes it bubbles right to the top of the top of the pile of concerns, and it's pretty, it's rolling pretty high right now. So for Pangolin, how do you navigate? I mean, I know that's a very broad question, but how do you kind of navigate the regulatory scene? And I mean, is Pangolin based out of the U.S.? Is it a non-U.S. entity?
Entity wise, we're not based in the U.S. We have a few people who are contributors to the DAO that are in the U.S., but we're globally distributed, and I don't technically the entity is elsewhere. I'm not the go-to for that, but since I've been here, it's changed so much. There's a library ruling last year where they pretty much said if you're like having a team allocation, that means that you're possibly creating so the problem with us would be our governance tokens, if they were going to call those a security. So we just kind of go with what the rulings are doing. A year and a half ago, it was a little different than it is now.
Right.
We're very cognizant of ensuring that people know at least our tokens are meant for governance. They're meant to decide the future of what Pangolin's going to do on each chain. So we have on Pangolin PBAR, we created a different governance token for our DEXs on Avalanche was the original one, Songbird and Flare, and now.
So we got another guest coming in. I'm gonna let Dr. Dark in. So
nice.
Yeah. Always, I like to have I like to conduct these kind of like meetups. Back in the old days, we actually used to meet in person and talk about stuff. Oh, he took off. I don't know. Maybe he might be back. Maybe he realized that he was jumping into the wrong thing. Who knows? But I do try to run these like meetups. So folks that are a part of we have a group called the HBAR Foundry. We've been meeting since summer of 2020, and I always invite those guys and gals to come in and pop in and say hey and bring their questions. We'll see if Braden pops back in. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Continue.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, just to finish out the thought, we have a really awesome our chief operations officer is a former lawyer, and he helps us a lot with navigating and talking to legal counsel. It's one of those frustrating things where on the inside, it's like we're constantly careful, especially from a marketing perspective, of how we talk about things, just because we don't want to make ourselves a target. And there's certain things like broadcasting or making it sound like you're ensuring people will get a return on things that SEC might particularly go after people for, that we're very cognizant about. And also it's just a good practice to make sure that there's a lot of, especially around the last like bull run, a lot of people promoting and almost promising or encouraging the promise of certain things that we like to shy away from a lot.
Sure.
Like stick to the facts and what we do well, which is like we believe that like decentralized systems, permissionless systems are a great thing that we want to invest in and build and follow where the tech's going and what's best for users long term.
Right. Yeah. And it's an interesting question that's coming out. I believe, it's the conversation. It's happening all over the place now, but certainly I know it was happening a little earlier in Europe, and now it's happening within the United States as well. The There was just a study released about the potential risks of decentralized platforms. And one of the kind of interesting things about it is that they're saying, well, no, the regulators are saying, well, it's called decentralized, but it's really only decentralized in name, and that in practice, it's actually there's like there is central control. So it's very interesting to me to see how we begin to define, organizations. I mean, the way that we define them now is changing. I mean, it's changing right before our very eyes. And so, I mean, it's a very, as the world gets kind of closer and closer together through the ability to communicate over high speed internet, and the video platforms like Zoom and all these things take off, and we're working with people all over the world. It's like, okay, so suddenly this idea of like, the idea of one world government that scares the absolute hell out of a lot of people. You start to wonder, well, how are we going to do all these things? How are we going to be a global economy, a truly global economy where we're all kind of shoulder to shoulder, so to speak, via the virtual spaces, and and how do you, who's going to say who's centralized and who's not, and where's the boundary for, when does it cease to be centralized and become decentralized? I mean, these are very complicated questions. I'm not sure that, who knows, we just kind of have our fingers crossed that, that the powers that be will be wise and not have too heavy hands and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. And I think the last month and a half that we've seen in the US with some of the Silicon Valley Bank and just the sort of things we see in the financial sector are a sign that, things that are auditable and you can see into that are financial systems are probably a good thing long term.
Right.
Yeah. And even working slowly towards more decentralized systems, I think people will realize, at least our generation, it seems way more keen on it than the people who run the government, at least in the US where I'm based. They don't seem as focused on it, but the people that are coming up and will be more policy and decision makers in the next 20 years, I think will have a lot more focus on the things we're building.
And also, right, I also think, or share the sentiments rather, that it's all relative when you're talking about centralized systems versus the decentralized ones. I don't think we shall ever achieve true decentralization. I mean, when you're building something, you must start from somewhere, then over time, decentralize it. And it's all relative. But the most attractive model that I've ever seen in the entire crypto space, you guys are already aware of the Hedera governance model. The way they put things, I think it's kind of hybrid. We still have a lot of big companies all over the world from different jurisdictions, and I think that'll work. And these are people who aren't after, if I might say, quick profits. And I see most projects built on Hedera, they're kind of going in such a similar direction when you talk about decentralized autonomous organizations. So I think it will just take time to get everything decentralized.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's tough too. I mean, it's funny because, as human beings, we are essentially centralized creatures, right? I mean, we experience things from a central point of view. So, so to kind of break those, unless I could suddenly start seeing and hearing what Tim sees and thinking what Eric is thinking, and that would be very strange. I'm not sure anybody would want that. But, so we're essentially centralized creatures by nature, right?
Yeah. And it's fun. It's funny because I've been a part of a number of DAOs at this point now, and a lot of people do market decentralization as like an ultimate proposition, but a lot of people don't partake in decentralized governance. And we see on some of the bigger proof of stake networks that validators can still get pretty centralized as it stands now. There can be a certain cost that is prohibitive to have a lot of decentralization, and depending on how. And a lot of people rely on centralized servers to even run nodes, or, wallets run through specific servers that don't necessarily make things as decentralized as they're sometimes touted as. So I agree.
Right.
And I think it's smart to the Hedera point. I think some like other layer one networks used to harp on Hedera saying that they were like centralized, seeing the governing council as a negative, when in reality it is pretty awesome to have that governing council slowly roll out decentralization for the network and make good decisions to set up Hedera for long-term success.
Right. Yeah, we certainly bought into the model. I mean, we thought it was attractive. I mean, the value that, having worked for one of these large, massive corporations myself, knowing how seriously that they take their brand, right? So just the value that's wrapped up in the brand in and of itself is quite a deterrent to certain types of bad behavior. Now, that's not to say that that the brand is going to ensure that they're always acting in our best interest, but it certainly is. They're public facing entities, right? So so there's definitely a value proposition there. So I did want to know, so does Pangolin have a mobile solution? Or what are the different ways that people can interact with Pangolin?
Yeah, so the main way would be to do app.pangolin.exchange. It's available in the Hashpack wallet as well, if you go through the browser there. But we've had some mobile friendly issues in the past because we've kind of defaulted to desktop view. You should be able to connect and do everything via mobile. I use desktop, so I'd have to fact check that. But the team's aware that mobile is where the future is going. A lot more users use mobile than people who actually develop in the space, which is this kind of back and forth that I think we deal with. But
right. Yeah. And so what do you think about mobile solutions for DeFi in general? I kind of hear I hear both sides of it. I mean, there's the argument that DeFi users are, tend to be more power users and that they want to have multiple screens and, keyboard at their disposal. And then, on the other side, I also hear from folks that, that, well, if you want to move it into mass adoption and you want to get as many eyeballs on your application as possible, that, mobile is a direction that people want to go. And of course, applications like Robinhood make that apparent that those kinds of applications can be super successful in a mobile environment. But what are your thoughts about DeFi and the kind of the battle for a presence in the mobile space?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when I use Coinbase, I use my phone, and when I use Pangolin, I use my desktop. It makes me nervous just from like an operational security standpoint to connect a wallet via. It's much easier to steal a phone or get hacked on a phone for the most part. It's like an easier attack vector if you have a lot of funds on there and you're farming, staking, or if you have a lot at stake there. And maybe that's why I feel a little bit safer doing a centralized exchange, because they kind of take on some of that security burden a little bit. But I think doing everything towards mobile is going to be the way to get the most impact long term, like focusing on mobile first, mobile friendly, because a lot of people use their phone as their main computer. Besides, like a lot of us who are in the space are pretty tech heavy, tech intensive. I think we like our desktops, but going forward, and I think you see kind of the user experience and the way things have been developed reflect that a lot, just industry wide. But there just definitely should be more of a focus on mobile, and I think there will be. As the kinks kind of get worked out and finding good solutions to bring people on chain in a quick and easy way with like a user-friendly interface will have to most likely be mobile.
Right. I find it, the mobile development is can be pretty challenging. I have to say though, I actually feel the opposite about the security, from a security standpoint, because the phones have things like, dedicated specific hardware devices that are dedicated to storage of secret keys and stuff like that. You've got like the secure enclave for iOS devices. On Android, I believe it was the Titan M. I'm not sure if the Titan M chip has been replaced by something else, and just the common existence of biometrics on phones and the ability to biometrically authenticate is something that I think really lends to the security for mobile devices. And of course, you can have browser extensions or kind of tend to be riddled with issues. Web applications often use ported code that is maybe ported from from, ported, and then if the security reviews aren't really done, with a keen eye, then things can be missed in the porting process. But that's kind of a technical diversion. But so just in general, what is the approach of Pangolin towards security? What's the and if that's a little bit out of your wheelhouse and not really in your realm, then I totally understand that. But just in general, what's the approach that's taken for security?
I mean, I can go kind of high level about it, because we come from, more EVM chains, O1s, like audits are huge. And that's one of the reasons that the UniV V2 contracts were used originally, highly audited. We've had, I think, 13 audits conducted across, all of our contracts over the past 2 years, which is super important for us. One of our main engineers he does contract work as an auditor. It's been something that, they're super excited about. So that's important. And we saw a few, I don't even remember how long ago it was when we had the precompile issue on Hedera. That luckily, I mean, we just got lucky there. We have some processes built in where users were seeing an issue with the pool. They bubbled it up in a ticket in our Discord to our moderators, who bubbled it up to our CTO, who realized instantly that what he was seeing wasn't what it should have been. And then using that there's communication lines in place with different stakeholders, try and figure out. So we have that at least, which is good. And that we were very quick to be able to act on that, which was awesome. And then outside of that, password stuff is very important. You see, like, it happened a lot, I think last year and the year before, where the front end of some exchanges would get compromised, and there would be people be able to deploy a dummy front end and get people to connect and approve. So we have certain things in place for that, and we kind of watch the land. I mean, we watch hack after hack after hack happen, and our team's very good at being cognizant and trying to take notice. And just over the weekend, I think there was found something in the way that Sushi Swap was. I think it was approvals that could have been compromised on multiple EVM chains. So like when we see that stuff, we make sure that we run it through our lens and our contracts as well.
Right. It's a never-ending battle. Yeah, exactly. It changes constantly. There's always new ways of, like with the MyAlgo hacks that the Algorand was experiencing, and the man in the middle attacks. It's like suddenly the man in the middle attack became, there was just this kind of, this increased awareness suddenly around man in the middle attacks. And, there was a lot of technologists kind of scrambling to make sure that those, that there weren't, that the opportunities for man in the middle attacks were reduced. And it's just kind of, as each attack happens, it kind of raises the awareness on both sides. Unfortunately, it also raises the awareness on the attacker side of, maybe somebody that didn't think about that threat vector before is now thinking about it and looking to exploit it and all those kinds of things. But yeah, it's a continual ongoing battle for sure.
Yeah, security is so important, and it's one of the things that I think people looking in at the space, if they saw the number of how much money is hacked, would be worrisome. But I was looking a few weeks back at just like how much fines banks have paid based on like activities they've gotten caught for, which is insanely higher than the multitude of all hacks together. So that tends to make me feel a little bit better about it. We're going through our learning phase.
Right. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, we don't think about that side of it as much. We were talking a little earlier, we were talking about the little bit about some of the reporting that came out. The most recent from the US at least came from the Department of the Treasury, and their exploration of security risks associated with decentralized finance. And it's a 42-page document, and at the end of it, the conclusion was, at the end of the day, fiat currencies are still a bigger source of fraud and corruption. Easier to take advantage of. So I just thought it was kind of funny that it's this long 42-page report on the dangers of decentralized finance, only to conclude at the end that fiat's actually more dangerous. But
yeah, I know, it's wild, right? I think a lot of people will start to realize that a little bit. The fraud. I've had a lot of conversations, and there's still a whole subset of people who just think Bitcoin is like Silk Road black market money, that people use to do things, and it's untraceable when in reality it's way more traceable than like
Right.
fiat currency, which is wild.
Right. Back in
Hopefully
2012, 2013, when nobody was looking and nobody had the sophistication to,
Yeah.
or most, institutions were not looking at the Bitcoin blockchain and trying to sniff out bad actors and things. But that, of course, has changed. This is no longer, it's not 2012, 2013 anymore, not by a long shot.
Yeah, it's hard to get away with now.
I do remember those days, though. I remember, I'll never forget the first time first time I ever talked about Bitcoin. It came up in a conversation about Silk Road, and
Yeah.
Silk Road. Some friends were talking about Silk Road, and like they're using this thing called Bitcoin, and it's like, Bitcoin, what the heck is Bitcoin? And it sounded like PayPal for criminals. That's really what that was my
Yeah,
kind of my
exactly.
first impression of Bitcoin, was like, oh, okay. I mean, just as I was trying to imagine it, not know anything about about the distributed ledger nature of it and the mining. It sounded
Yeah.
like some go to some seedy website, probably give them some credit card information and get some untraceable Bitcoin. That was at least the impression. Of course, that's but yeah, that was 2012. A
Yeah.
lot changed since then, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm going to take a brief minute here. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can't join and do a little bit of a little exploration of some stuff in Wallawallet. So we had some users request that we show off a little bit of what Wallawallet can do. So I'm going to join in here. I'm going to say that. All right. So one of the things that we that we hear a lot about, we get a lot of requests we get a lot of support tickets from users that that they're saying that the keys that their recovery phrase, they're being told that it doesn't control the account ID that that they've entered in. So they put in the recovery phrase, and of course with Hedera we have the whole account numbers schema. So we get a lot of folks that that have issues with that. So I wanted to show off a little convenience feature here within Wallawallet.
I'm not sure I can see your screen.
So it should get there in just a second.
There you go.
All right, so we'll go over here. All right, so now we're in testnet mode here. So and appreciate your patience here. We just want to show off a little bit of the stuff within Wallawallet so people can kind of, we talk a lot about other projects and what they're doing, but we like to talk a little bit about ourselves too.
Yeah,
so now this is in testnet, and I have in this instance I have already gone through the account through the wallet recovery part of it. So I've already entered in my recovery phrase. I verified the correct order of the recovery phrase, and now I'm going to restore a wallet, or I'm going to restore an account. I want to restore a Hedera account. And so in this case, so if you're not sure exactly what accounts might be associated with the recovery phrase that you put in, so you can, let's say, well, I'm pretty sure that I have an account associated with this, but I'm not 100% sure. I can go to restore account, and now if you notice, of course, we have the ability to see the recovery phrase. We can enter in manually, we can enter in the account ID. But if we want to just see, well, what is it? I can tap search my accounts, and I can see it pops up with the account ID that's actually associated with this. Now, if there were more than one account associated with this key pair, it would show all of the different accounts. So this is kind of a lesser known convenience feature. If people have multiple accounts associated with the key pair, or if they're putting in an account ID and it's telling them that that this account is not controlled by the recovery phrase that you entered in, you can just kind of do this search account IDs feature, and it'll list all of the account IDs that are associated with that key pair. Just a little kind of lesser known convenience feature that I wanted people to be aware of. So if you enter in a recovery phrase and it's successful, but then restoring the account doesn't seem to work, try that search feature and see which account IDs are actually associated with it. This checks against this. Basically what this is doing is taking the public key of your public key, and it does a check to see what account IDs are associated with that particular public key. So when you put in, of course, when you put in your recovery phrase, the wallet is aware of what the public and private keys are once you've entered those in, and it takes that public key and verifies and runs a check against the Hedera network to see what account IDs are associated with it. So just a little, like I said, a little lesser known convenience feature within Wallawallet that I wanted to show off, and that is it.
I think everyone has been there, has made that mistake of trying to restore an account with the wrong recovery phrase, because
Right.
you wrote, maybe somewhere you wrote it got mixed up, and you have maybe 2-3 accounts, and you can't tell which was the correct recovery phrase for the corresponding account ID. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, key management's I mean, that's a big, continually, that's another one of those ongoing issues that, pretty much everybody in the crypto space is aware of them. There are some pretty neat, solutions coming out, and we're evaluating some of those. Basically the kind of position that we've always taken at Wallawallet is security first. It's just, that's absolutely the kind of core part of our being is security first. So when these new solutions come out, while they're attractive and we want to explore them and we want to learn more about them, a lot of them are not necessarily battle tested. So it's one of those that we take that pretty seriously, and we take a long, hard look at what we're going to implement as far as convenience features, because we certainly, I mean, it's got to be user friendly. Otherwise, this industry is never, the industry will never really get off the ground if we can't find solutions to these and make these problems a little bit easier for people to use. But at the same time, we don't want to, as we've been talking about, there's so many problems with hacks and security breaches that that we take that really seriously. So we are definitely working on solutions for better key management and better user experience, but just so people are aware that those kinds of things, this kind of analysis do take time. So we're working on it.
Okay, yeah, slow and steady is the way.
Right.
Sure.
So does Pangolin support? So you said there's what, 5 different chains that are currently supported?
Yeah, where we have liquidity, but if you go to our Wallet Connect mobile or modal, you'll find a lot, because we have that product bridge swap that does cross-chain swaps.
Right.
That aggregates bridges indexes. You can connect to those chains as well. So I think you'll see, I'd have to fact check, but I think there's like 18 to 20 wallet options when you hit network. But yeah, for chains that we actually host contracts and liquidity on, we are at 5 right now. Okay.
And then so within the Hedera ecosystem itself, do you support other Hedera tokens within Pangolin, or is it just HBAR that's
so any tokens that, like, the cool thing about a decentralized exchange is anybody can add liquidity for any token pair that they want. Part of what we're talking about with emissions and putting rewards to them, it kind of funnels people into those pairs. Like right now, if you were to go to the farm page, the deepest liquidity we will have is an HBAR, PBAR, HBAR-X, HBAR, USDC, the ported one from Ethereum, paired with PBAR, and then that one paired with USDT from Ethereum as well. Okay. And we have another farm for Headstarter, which is a launch pad and accelerator. We've partnered with them for a super farm. Right. And I believe we have liquidity for the new meme token Growth that's been coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. But since we've focused on some of these, what people would call like blue chip pairs, the ones that tend to get the most volume, we see a lot of value in making sure that we have deep liquidity and stable coin pairs so that people have a safe place to put their value. And then in HBAR as well, and HBAR-X, which has like some of the most TVL in the entire network. Right. But as more tokens come out and as we partner with more projects, we'll definitely be having more farms over the next year. And if anybody who has, a substantial amount of liquidity and they wanted to earn fees on that, they could create any liquidity pool. And if they wanted, you don't even need to have your token whitelisted to do that on our exchange, but you can if you reach out and there's enough liquidity, we'll whitelist so that way the token automatically pops up in the swap widget. and automatically shows up in the farm section as well.
Cool. So so how does the liquidity on Pangolin compare to other decentralized exchanges in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so right now, I believe it's just Saucer, ourselves, and Heli. Last week we were fluctuating between like 9 and 10 million of like USD value in total value locked, and I think Saucer is closer to 20. I'd have to double check on DeFi Llama, but we're somewhere in the middle between Saucer and Heli right now. So I think pairwise, I don't know specifically which pairs. We've really focused on a couple main ones to make sure that if people are making big trades or big swaps, that there's not such a substantial like impact to price, which is one of the things that we've learned from all our different deployments on different networks. Like you can have a high TVL, but if you don't have the right TVL in the certain pairs, like it's not as worthwhile if it's spread across a bunch of pairs. So we've really focused in on what we see as the most important places to have volume right now. And we're pretty proud. I mean, times have been really weird this year, but I think we've been live for 2 or 3 months, and I'm thinking 3 months. But we're pretty proud of where we've come as far as being able to join the community and have people support us, especially with, we've had some interesting with the exploit or vulnerability problem we had a few weeks ago. The support we saw from people even outside of that was amazing. We've had some UI bugs. It's generally pretty hard to build like a multi-VM framework, or like when you have all these different networks you can toggle between, it really adds a lot of complexity to the UI we've figured out. And it's been, almost a frustratingly slow process to find those bugs, because they're all going to be first-time bugs for almost any project. I don't know if there's another multi-chain DEX there isn't another multi-chain DEX that connects to Hedera from these other like EVM networks. So
man, every time I talk about, every time it inevitably it comes up, I don't know, at least a couple times a month, Wallawallet, when you guys going to be, when you guys going to be cross-chain, when you guys going to support multiple coins? And if I don't even bring it up to our CTO, because I just get this like kind of angry, like this kind of angry look of like, I can't possibly do any more than I am right now. But no, I mean, having looked at it, it's, supporting more, the more networks you support, the more entropy and the harder it is. I absolutely understand that. And Pangolin's been, and as far as the community awareness, I mean, I've been in the Hedera community really since the very beginning, and Pangolin's made a nice splash, and you guys are getting a lot of, you're getting a lot of attention. I hear the name continually. So, and we, of course, and we certainly, I think as a kind of a niche ecosystem, we really appreciate other teams, especially teams that are supporting other layer ones coming in and giving Hedera a spin. We certainly appreciate what the team's doing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's awesome for us too, because we really believe in what Hedera is doing. And part of what we're building is almost like an overlay network where you can connect all these different chains to different DEXs. And ideally we'll have, once we work through some of the complexity we already have, getting like a hash port integration into our bridge swap feature, where you could easily swap between chains into and out of Hedera to bring in new users, and also let users explore other options if they want before coming back to Hedera. Is like something that's really in our line of sight and something we want to build. And it's hard being early, especially there's always growing pains in new networks. We originally launched on Avalanche, which had its growing pains. We're on other smaller ones, so we're very familiar with them. But it's very cool to kind of build this infrastructure and slowly steer this big ship towards a direction where we think when we're getting more and more adoption to these networks, it's going to be awesome and easy to get users, to have users go from community to community and, move value around. So, right.
So one of the things so part of a kind of a compliment sandwich here. So we did have some, and we talked a little bit about this before the show started, but did have some users chime in, when I was kind of poking around asking questions. You had a few users say, UI issues, grumble, user interface, when resolved, when fixed. So let's touch on that just a little bit. So what are some of the issues that have been popping up for Pangolin? And believe me, we understand. There's another one of those ongoing battles. But if you could just kind of touch a little bit on that.
Yeah, so we've had a number of issues at launch. Originally, we had a problem with our connection to Hashpack. There was just like for 2 weeks a bug where users had problems even connecting to the DEX, which is not great. Luckily, that was like a one-time fix. It just took a little while to get through. So that was like the jump. We launched hoping to have a big bang, and we were like, oh, most people can't even connect to the DEX. So that was more of just a front-end issue, and all of our UI issues have been front-end related. We kind of have a big focus on at the contract level being secure. So, and especially with these multi-chain deployments, that's why you tend to see more issues with the UI. We'd rather it be UI issues than contract level issues. But
our wallet was the same way. I mean, for people that have used Wallawallet since the beginning, I mean, really the first iteration of Wallawallet, it was horrible. It was pretty ugly, right? And it was like the UI was super clunky, but man, the thing was rock solid, stable, and secure on the back end. So your H bar was safe. You may not like the interface. You may not be able to actually access the wallet, but your H bar was safe. No,
your money is there. Yeah. So that's one of the issues we have, because it's hard to connect and see either discrepancies in the amount of rewards you get or your TVL or the swaps loading slowly. Things like that are tough, because if you're not as familiar with the contract level, you would think you'd be worried instantly that your money might be gone, and especially with the amount of hacks that happen. So it's totally understandable, and it's something that we're working on. We've had issues with our subgraph, which is kind of how we pool all the data on token prices and the things that would display a lot of the stuff you see on the UI. And it's been a struggle, and we've had issues on other networks as well with that. We've been building like a bespoke solution for it, or trying to figure out exactly how we're going to manage that. And our team's been working on it, I mean, for months now. So we're slowly working on it. I understand users have problems, and I always encourage people to join our Discord, because it's like a direct like line into our team. If they have issues, talk about it. Generally, funds are always safe. It's just we have problems with the way that rewards are displayed, and sometimes there's some definite speed issues. But things we're working on. I'm hoping, like, the real goal for me is, if by the end of this year, going into 2024, we feel like we've made an insanely secure solution, we're building infrastructure, and we've like hammered out and made one of the best and like quickest like interfaces out there, would be awesome. And I think we have a good foundation now. We're just really finding the important bugs and working through them, but it takes time, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when the attack happened back in early March on the Hedera Network, of course, the Hedera, they took down the proxy networks that were, so basically access to the nodes themselves was gone. So for all intents and purposes, the network was not down, but it was inaccessible, and which was causing our wallet to crash, and so the users had a lovely combination of trying to open up hearing about the hack, trying to open up their wallet, the wallet crash, and then they would go to like Hashscan and check, and it would show a zero balance. They'd look up their account and it showed a zero balance. That was just like, oh my goodness, that was an absolute nightmare. So I feel really full of the UI pain. We feel it a lot too. But
you kind of get battle tested in this space, and I've seen enough huge I mean, just in the little over a year that I've been here, there's been, the longer you're in the space, the more you see stuff like this and the more used to it you get, which is unfortunate, but also sticking around is important, and knowing what you can and can't do. And luckily some of these issues are fixable, and we're excited about, and we appreciate people who are sticking with us through it all. And ideally we'll have like one of the best UIs eventually where you can do as much as possible, and there's a lot of awesome opportunities, but there are definitely bugs, and we're fighting that battle.
So no particular estimated time of resolution. Just basically you're hoping that by the end of the year you've got the UI, you've got pretty much things ironed out, and in the meantime, people that have, of course, you want to know the issues that people are having directly. So people joining your Discord And we'll make sure that a link to your Discord is available in the chat, in the description below the video.
Nice. Yeah. For the issues, I mean, last week we had a specific issue with our subgraph, and we built kind of a workaround solution that was slower. So we're constantly fixing things, and like rewards do show up properly now. But we've run into it so many times where, the UI can have some rendering issues. So I won't say it's fully solved, but everything should be, if you were to go to the app right now, everything will load correctly and look right. It might be a little slow. But ideally we'll have that subgraph issue where it works way faster and is always firing at 100% done before the end of the year for sure. Gotcha. And then other bugs like load times and things like that is more of the year-long time frame. We're slowly building towards like a lightning fast version.
Sure. So what's in the pipeline for, so we're kind of, basically, and we've been talking a lot about, we've hit on it some as to what's coming for the rest of the year. Are there any other milestones that you're excited about that you either have recently achieved or that you're looking forward to this year? And so milestones and partnerships, what kind of partnerships is Pangolin looking for? I'm sure that collaboration is pretty much always on, it's kind of always on our minds. It doesn't always necessarily get, it doesn't necessarily always happen because we're all in, different teams and working as hard as we can. But so what's in the pipeline for Pangolin over the next few months?
Yeah, next few months. Well, we have all the different networks now. So specific to Hedera, milestone wise, we'd love to work on getting getting Hashport integrated to BridgeSwap. Gotcha. Something we've been talking about since I think before we even launched. Sure. I don't know exactly where that is in our roadmap, but having that solution for people to bridge in directly to Hedera from our UI would be amazing. And then for partnerships, we kind of focus on the basics a lot of times, which is making sure we have good liquidity, partnering with projects that we find are important to the ecosystem and helping them build liquidity as much as we can around, even if it's just education campaigns and putting some farm emissions to a pair. But as Hedera grows, we see there's just so much opportunity for people to build cool stuff. So a lot of the partnerships we look forward to, might not even be around yet. Just like making sure we're ready to and partner with anybody who's, here to build and here to stick around for a long time, and is interested in, building towards a future where you can do a lot of things on Hedera that you can't do now.
Right. Well, certainly Ledgerama and the Wallawallet team are one of those teams. I mean, we've been around, like I had said, folks know that we've been around since the very beginning, and we plan on being here for the long haul. So this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you, Eric. So I definitely look forward to, to encouraging some of those partnerships between Ledgerama and the Pangolin team, because just from some of the interviews that I've seen and now having talked to you, one-on-one, I definitely think that our teams would work well together. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline as well. Of course, being able to connect, DApp connectivity is one of those that's been particularly challenging for us, kind of given our tech stack. There's been some unique challenges that we've had to overcome, and so we're continually working towards that. And people that are familiar with the kind of inner workings of the Hedera network know that the wallet connect issue is kind of one of the main focal points right now. Hashpack has done a fantastic job with Hash Connect and kind of laying the early groundwork. But that works well for them, but for the ecosystem, we all kind of need to kind of put our hats, our thinking caps on and come up with good solutions. But as we move forward, definitely looking to establish some of those partnerships. And I think Pangolin's one of those teams that we're pretty excited about and looking forward to work with. Before we start wrapping it up with some final thoughts, are there what would you like to leave with the users or with the viewers out there in YouTube land? What's the best way to kind of keep up with Pangolin? What things would you what would you like to leave them with before we start to wrap it up?
Yeah, follow us at our Twitter for Hedera is Pangolin_Hedera. It's like the best place for announcements, news, things that are happening in the now. Same with Discord as well. That's like our direct community line. There's a lot of we have some awesome community members who are in there and chatting daily, just about everything. So it's a good place to get in, especially if you're running into any issues. We have a support system in there, which is really great. That would be the main way. I'm not very active on Twitter, otherwise I'd say follow me too.
You guys Do you guys have every account for every single network you're on? Avalanche, Flare?
Yeah, we have our main one, which is just Pangolin LINKS, and we
Okay.
normally use that just for the Avalanche stuff because that was our original one. We have one for Flare and Songbird as well, and one for Hedera. So we have 3 different Twitter accounts. It's a lot.
Yep.
But Twitter is kind of it's like the town square for crypto. And
Right.
it's nice to have these because we can really, the goal is to have these for each network. That way we can get more in depth on it. And we can always do crossover spaces and content between all 3, but it's really nice to focus in because Hedera does have such an interesting community specific to the network. And it's nice to be able to just speak to those people. So
Right.
it's been, and everybody's been very welcoming on Twitter too. It's great seeing the community and how people interact. It's very nice. You see a lot of tribalism on some other networks, and things have been, Hedera's particularly nice.
We've got our H barbarians. We certainly have our tribalism as well. I won't deny that, but I think generally it's a pretty, it's a mature, respectful community. So I think by and large I have not been. There's very few times that I've been ashamed of our community. I can't actually, off the top of my head, I can't really think of any. By and large, it's a pretty well spoken, respectful community, and we're happy to have Pangolin on board.
Yeah, we're happy to be here, man. And I appreciate y'all having me on. It's been awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Tim, if you would, go ahead, Tim, if you've got something. I was just going to ask you to check the chat and make sure there's no questions rolling in for Eric here.
Yeah, we checked. Unfortunately, there are no questions. I think everybody was very satisfied with everything that's been covered.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So before we do our jam giveaway, a couple other just kind of couple housekeeping things. I did have this little service announcement for our US based folks. I know a lot of folks in the US are really sad to see that Bittrex is they're pulling out of the United States. So amidst regulatory concerns, Bittrex has decided to discontinue service in the United States, and the dates are rolling quickly. So we're in April now. Actually, the account setup deadline for wire withdrawals is actually already passed. So April 7th was the deadline for setting up wire withdrawals. Now I'm sure that if you reach out to, if you still have something on Bittrex, and you're just going to have to reach out to support and figure out what it is that you need to do. But as far as fiat and withdrawals there, you're going to have to come up with. I'm sure they'll have a solution for you. But basically, yeah, this is kind of an announcement. Folks that use Bittrex, it pains me to no end to see a service like Bittrex discontinue service in the United States. But given the regulatory concerns, and they're slapping people with lawsuits and investigations. I mean, when you got Coinbase is under the gun, of course, we've seen all the issues with Ripple, and there's it goes on and on. So unfortunately, and of course with issues with Binance as well. So the regulatory concerns heating up in the United States, Bittrex pulling out. So the trading deadline is April 14th. The fiat wire withdrawal deadline is April 24th. ACH withdrawal deadline April 27th. Last full day to withdraw cryptocurrency, April 29th. So Bittrex users, the clock is ticking. Don't get in a situation where you're going to have to deal with their support team, because that could drag on for eternity, because they're going to have a lot of support issues as they discontinue the service. And then operations, April 30th is the last day. Operations in the United States will cease for Bittrex. So that's kind of a sad day. Bittrex, based out of Seattle, Washington. So they're really kind of one of our homegrown hero kind of success stories here in the United States, but unfortunately they're pulling out. So so message out to the congressmen, representatives, senators, local and federal, stop crushing innovation and the ability to trade with the United States. We're going to put up a link to an article. I've got an article drafted. It's basically it's really a letter that people can send to their representatives. I'm going to be posting that article on our website, and we'll put a link to that article in the description below once that's been posted on our website. But just kind of a little service announcement. As far as Market Mondays go, the total market cap is up over the past 7 days. We're looking at up about 1.5% from 1.69 trillion to 1.188 trillion over the past 7 days. Total market cap. Bitcoin up 1.29% on the 7-day, up to about 28,400. And HBAR not having a great 7-day. We had a little spike a little more than a week ago. We had a nice little run up, but those gains have been kind of chopped. We are down about 7% on the 7-day, down to 6.526 cents per HBAR. So Eric, again, this has been an incredible pleasure. And now we're going to get to my favorite part of the show. We're going to give away some jam tokens. So Tim, who is our winner for today?
Yeah, we certainly do have a winner, but before I announce them, once you were mentioning something about the regulators, and this morning Kevin was I watched a clip about him saying these guys are tired of having hearings. So I was hoping that would be true, so that they would stop. They would just stop with all this craze of attacking crypto companies. It's just crazy. But anyways,
Regulators going to regulate.
Yeah. The winner is at LFGWML. So we're going to reach out via Twitter and get him his jam tokens.
LFGWML?
Yep.
All right. So at LFGWML from our Twitter family, congratulations on the 10,000 jam tokens. I love giving away these jam tokens because, it's a great way for people to actually get a hold of some tokens. They don't have to pay a whole bunch of money. It's not really, the value is, it's not like we're giving thousands of dollars away, but it's just a way for people to interact with these tokens, see how lightning fast the Hedera network is. Shout out to Andrew Antar and the folks over at the Tune.fm team for these promotional tokens. We really appreciate the work that's going on over at Tune.fm. So thanks for our Twitter family. Thanks for the YouTube folks for joining us as we go through another Alternative Money Monday. And of course, if you liked what you saw, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. If you didn't like what you saw, well, give us a thumbs down, but leave a comment and let us know what you didn't like. And, we'll make sure that we're making improvements going into the future. Eric, again, this has been an incredible pleasure. It was great talking to you, great meeting you, and I look forward to doing this again.
Definitely. Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody. So have a great week. I'm sorry, was there anything else, Tim?
No, I just said thank you to Eric. It's been a labor of love trying to connect with them, but it was super easy via Discord.
Awesome. Yeah. And Tim, thanks for your work, getting this set up. Can't thank you enough, buddy. We really appreciate it. All right, all you HBarbarians, Toonies, Pangolin folks, all you folks tuning in to the YouTube, our audience out there,